Elon Musk freaking out because a judge doesn't want his group of toadies to get into Treasury is one thing, okay? JD Vance is technically the vice president. I know all of the powers have been taken by Elon Musk, but I believe that symbols are important, and JD Vance is still a symbol. So he said, if a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. It's also a stupid hypothetical because what are you talking about? That's not a thing. But anyway, if a judge tried to command the attorney general in how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. And so let's pause for a second. We've gotten to this point. We were always racing towards it. They're gonna say judges don't count anymore, because that's the only thing that on some levels they don't control. They control the Supreme Court, but they don't control all of the judges. That's the only thing that can check their illegal and unconstitutional power grabs. So what do you know? We're what, 2 weeks into this, 2.5 weeks into this, and judges don't count anymore. But let's pause for a second there, because first of all, there's issues with that constitutionally, but also, have you ever, over the last 4 years, heard JD Vance say that? I suppose, hey, all of you with student loan debt that was briefly canceled and then they reversed it. No, the reversal doesn't actually count because Joe Biden canceled your student loan debt. And how dare one of these judges tell the executive what he's gonna do? He doesn't have any authority over the president, so I guess your student loan debt has all been canceled. And we can all go do some research today. Everything that a judge struck down from Joe Biden is now back in effect, according to JD Vance, who says judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. Okay, now obviously he doesn't mean that. He's not, as always, this is, look, I criticize this and often I point out how hypocritical it is to obviously believe, no, judges can't control a Republican president's power, but they can control a Democrat's. I also don't wanna miss, because I am trying to save young American men from themselves, what an utterly pathetic way this is to go about your life. To have no principles or values whatsoever, for everything to just need to be exactly as I need it in this particular case. Well, now my guy's in charge, so judges don't count. And then if Joe Biden gets back in, judges say, us. No, the judges have their constitutionally delegated role to play in the balance of powers that we have. We have 3 branches. They are co-equal. I'm almost certain that's even in the document, okay? And so this is a pathetic way for this little half-man JD Vance to pretend to believe about things, but it's also something that he has been clear on. Back in 2021, he said, and when the courts, because you will get taken to court, and when the courts stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and say, the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it. Now, obviously he didn't want Joe Biden to do that, and obviously Joe Biden wasn't going to do that because Joe Biden, like basically every president going back hundreds of years, has understood that if the president just tells the Supreme Court to go kick rocks, our system doesn't exist anymore. But he does want Donald Trump to do that. Oh, and also, they're kind of doing that right now. So a judge last week had reversed the leave order that was given to US aid workers. So the Trump administration had said, all of you just go home, you're done. Even though they can't end US aid, Congress would have to. And that's what the judge said, no, you can't just end this. Workers were still turned away from the offices this morning. So they are violating that court order. Okay. Also, a federal judge has determined that the Trump administration is openly now for almost 2 weeks violating the blanket spending freeze on federal grant programs, including for the IRA and the NIH. So a judge had stopped that and Trump just did it anyway. And now they're throwing out another order. I don't know why he would comply with this one when he didn't comply in the first. But let's be clear, when we are talking about their now crusade against the judiciary, we're not talking about something hypothetical that perhaps we'll have in the future. It's happening right now. They're already violating multiple judges telling them to stop their illegal and unconstitutional acts. And so JR, this is now into the territory of, I mean, we've already with the concentration camps at Guantanamo and Trump with the ethnic cleansing of Gaza and everything, which we'll talk about more on the show. We are now fully into worst case scenario, worst predictions that were made before the election. They're now openly saying we do not have to comply with what judges say. What do you think about this?
Yeah, it's a consistent testing of the waters. I mean, before it was testing the waters with constituents and voters. And once they've got enough of them on board, then you step over and you have to test the waters when it comes to crossing lines with the legislative branch. And that was pretty easy because, as we see, Republicans control both houses, both the House and the Senate. But there was a report in the Washington Post that pointed out many of these Republicans are just, again, the legislative Republicans are just as shocked, oh my God, by the things that Donald Trump has decided to start doing, him and his whole group of mobsters in here. Now, once they do, they have to start considering their lives and their jobs because that's all they care about anyway. They honestly never gave a damn about the American people or the people that they said they're looking to represent. So they got scared. And the next step then is to try to either apologize for it, find some other reason and thought behind it. Pay attention to these processes because this is what the Washington Post said when they spoke to some of these folks. Then they have to, after having to find some kind of way around it or explanation, you notice they always say, well, what I think he meant was, how about we listen to what the F he said rather than what you think he meant by what he explicitly said. So after they got past that point, it just comes to just trying to find a way for their stance to then conform to what Donald Trump has told them to do. All because they're afraid of revenge, retribution, and then being targeted. It's strong arming, like almost like an authoritarian would. But when it comes to judges and lower courts, all the way up potentially to the Supreme Court, the idea is to just ignore them. I didn't know it before we jumped on here that they had started to violate those already with JD Vance's tweet. I thought was just a warning shot. And then eventually we're gonna get to that constitutional crisis once they begin to violate those orders. But there's still another step. They've already begun to violate them. The next step is for someone to finally push back and go, okay, we're stopping you now. Then the standoff happens and we've got the issues that we're gonna have. And that, I think, leads to the last stage of what I think Donald Trump thinks is how he's gonna finish his coup of the country is, but I've got control of the military because I've got Pete Hegseth's dumbass here doing anything I tell him to do. How about some force against you guys? Yeah, and everybody's gonna call it crazy. And oh my God, I can't believe you said that. That's not what the United States of America. We got tons of people in this country right now saying, yeah, Donald Trump can do whatever he wants. I saw someone else saying, why don't they start arresting these judges? They don't understand anything about their, I can't cuss on this show, from their mouth to their anus. So they decided to finally, anything that they say is just regurgitating anything else that these guys tell them because it's totally not a cult.
Yeah, and that's the issue. I mean, none of these senators, none of these Congress people are doing anything about this. They see the Constitution from Trump can't even see the Constitution from where he's sitting right now. He doesn't care about the laws. He doesn't care about the Constitution. He's utterly done with that. If you're some sort of like old school conservative watching this, and you think that, oh, finally we have people in charge who respect this. No, not remotely. You think about what you wanted for the last 4 years, the Supreme Court to do when you heard that Joe Biden was doing something you don't like. You were hoping what? That the Supreme Court would go have brunch because they have no role to play when it comes to the executive branch? No, you know that there is checks and balances. You know that that is how our system works until it doesn't. Okay, and maybe we're going too far. We're exaggerating, it's hyperbolic. Oh no, he'd never do that. He'd never just ignore it. He'd never use the troops against us or whatever. I don't know. Did you think he was going to set up concentration camps in Guantanamo? Did you think he was going to announce that the United States was seizing control of the Gaza Strip and banishing every Palestinian there so they can sell condos to rich Russians or whatever? Did you think that a couple of weeks ago? Because we're there now. Anyway, we're gonna see. But the judiciary doesn't have tanks. They don't have planes. And Pete Hegseth's loyalty obviously, explicitly is to Donald Trump over the Constitution, his oath of office, our concept of our country, the flag, whatever. So
and John,
just
really
prepare
fast.
for
I'm
that.
sorry.
Could be a lot of fun.
I know you got more, really fast. Now think about it. We talked about the guardrails that they were in place when Trump was first in office. All the things that he did. They said, and Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, keeps saying, if we refer back to Trump's first term, you'll see that this, and the third happened, and that's why now that's what's going to happen. It has nothing to do with each other because there's completely different scenarios with different kinds of monies and people in charge. But once the guardrails are off, things like this happen that weren't happening before. That 100% he was proposing. It's a matter of whether or not you paid attention to it. So to the military point, when people may say, that's crazy for you to think that he would use the military against citizens. Well, he tried to. there was guardrails. There were very conservative generals and heads of his departments that stopped him from doing that. He absolutely 100% proposed and looked to do those things. They wouldn't let him. Now, as we've seen the system go, he fills all of his surroundings in the government with yes men who won't stop him. So those things that he didn't do, that you for some reason believe he tried to do, will happen.
Well, I mean, the exciting thing coming out of this, as I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, I guess, if there's President AOC next time around, she can unilaterally change taxes. She can make mandatory DEI in every private company. She can do all this stuff. And I know what you're saying. No, but that goes against the law and the Constitution. According to who? Judges can't do anything. JD Vance just told you that, and you believe it. And so conservatives are potentially signing up for a real wild first term for President Ocasio-Cortez. When you click the join button and become a tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?